You sent the book around?
You can get away with that to a degree until people see you the next day and they go, "We're in that yesterday," and I'm like, "No, place wasn't open."
It wasn't
You get away with that.
Just not
open now.
Oh, man. Did you go bring this?
darn a
Yeah, I
lot.
have stuff on hold. That's especially when I worked from home prior to politics. So I was just grungy living in my little office, eating my best life.
I thought we were going to do it right now.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe it moved.
So
I know, I mean, what?
Heard there was a shame.
See.
So they sent you a tractor back. The time has arrived. If everybody please stand and I'll call the meeting to order and we recite the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So, this is our first experiment with an evening meeting. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you for having us.
So, we will start out, we have 15 minutes for public comment, 5 minutes per whoever wants to speak. So,
Can we come up at the same time?
Yeah.
Same time?
Yeah.
Come on up here, Christy. It's our turn.
I'll come after.
Oh,
Hey, Joanne. I'll come after.
okay. Alrighty. Okay. I came here to talk about the pipeline that is being proposed, and we have no reason, or no, we don't have any idea why it's being done. We received a letter from engineers out of Manhattan saying that they needed to do a survey for a pipeline. And Keith has a copy of that diagram there, and it seems to zigzag all of us who are property owners that stood up to the slaughterhouse. It's just kind of weird. Well, I wanted to know who ordered the survey, and he couldn't answer me. And this is Ben Burton out of SMH Consulting, the engineers. And
When did that happen?
that was, April 16th is when that was mailed. Yeah. And they told me they could not give me any information. And
When you say pipeline, is it energy, is it oil?
gas line,
Gas line.
natural gas line. See, down Kansas One Gas, it runs, there are 3, I gave you a map of the pipelines, and there are 3 different lines, and I've talked to Troy about this before. There are 2 north of I-70 and 1 south of I-70, and the one south of I-70 is south of Old 40, and it goes through our property. So they're wanting to go up Britt Road and go up through our property and then meander all on, up north to the next pipeline and connect the 2. Well, one morning I found the Kansas Gas Service trucks parked on Britt Road, so I decided to question them because I had not heard back. Not got any comment from Ben Burton with the surveyors. So I asked them, and they told me that the reason that they were doing this was because there was an issue with the pipeline over by the landfill.
Our
Oh.
landfill?
Is the landfill over south of where Walmart is? That landfill over
that's
there?
our old one.
Yeah, and they said there's a problem there crossing that, and that letter that Keith has talks about that, I think, or I think KCC's document. But anyway, and then they told me, well, if they don't fix this, then that jeopardizes the gas service for Chapman and Enterprise. But the problem is the gas flows west to east, so this doesn't make sense at all. And finally, I gave my contact information to the engineer and the person in the truck who was the head of that operation. And she contacted me. It was the day that we went to the Flint Hills meeting in Council Grove. She gave me a call on the way back. And she would not give me the information either as to, she just basically said that Well, one thing that she told me was the county doesn't, I asked her why the county wasn't aware of it. And she said, well, they don't need to know. I'm like, why? Wouldn't you guys be the best ones to determine what the best location is? Because she had told me that there were 3 proposed locations for this pipeline. I asked her specifically where they were. She would not give me that information. She said she didn't have to give that out. Well, I've kind of sat by the wayside here because I haven't heard anything back. Well, now come to find out, I also told her that if they take this line the way they are here, they're going to be taking a 100-foot easement, and that is probably going to be taking our water well. If they take on that map the way they've got there. See, and it's older water well, and they probably don't have any information on it. So, anyway, so like I said, I haven't heard anything. And then this weekend, they trespassed on a friend's property that we know, one of our neighbors. And they did not get permission. They did not have permission to go on that property. And they were run off of that property. Well, the person on the other side of that property, I called her and she said, well, I gave them permission because they told me my neighbors gave permission. Well, they didn't have permission. They lied to her. So I'm like, something needs to be done with this. Some investigation needs to be done. I have talked to the KCC and they don't have much more information on it
Do
either.
they know about it?
Not until I called the first time, because the reason I called KCC is because the area representative it's not in our area, but close. I work with him a lot on issues down in Topeka, and he told me to contact KCC. So anyway, KCC.
What do you recommend? Betsy, would it behoove you to reach out to KCC?
I'm happy to.
Okay.
I mean, it's
I mean,
a civil matter. There's
shouldn't be their issue. This should be our.
Well, it shouldn't be so secretive.
Right.
That's what I
Because
keep asking her.
KDOT's usually pretty upfront
Yes.
with us.
Yes, yes.
I mean, we can
That's-
see if they'll tell us anything, but I don't know as far as, because I called the state, our state reps to see if they knew about it, and they did not know about it. And then Troy said, no survey company has reached out. I checked with GIS this morning after I saw your post, and he said nobody's,
He told me that when I asked him if he was able to contact me, he said no.
Yeah.
At the one meeting that I was here, and I never spoke or anything about it.
Well,
No, I know, but when I knew you were gonna come, I wanted to make sure that nobody did like Friday. So,
Well, this all happened on Friday, and that's what, I don't want people losing their property rights over this. Because the big
Well-
issue that I want the public to know right now is that utility companies, the state or the feds cannot control eminent domain. Utility companies have full right to eminent domain, and if they take this easement, imagine what those property owners are gonna be going through in the future. And especially if this is being pushed for Taylor Road development. Because so far, 2 of the locations that they are surveying now, they both follow Taylor Road. Where is the 3rd location? Now, it tells me somebody knows and somebody's pushing for this, and I'd like to know where it's coming from, who is doing it. I'm not gonna make any accusations or anything, but there has to
we can see
be.
if we can find something out, because they don't have to tell us either.
Yeah,
But we can, at least inquire about it.
yeah. Well, I
I
think the
appreciate you
county,
bringing it to our attention.
well, the county needs to, the KCC needs to know that anything like this that is proposed, and when they receive the documents on it, because the part of KCC is in Wichita also. And whenever these gas lines proceed, they register intent and give all the information on that. So that information should be shared with the county and the city.
Yeah.
The whole area,
But we'll check.
and
Yep.
there's nothing.
So,
So,
thank you.
anyway.
Yeah, thank you for bringing it to our attention.
I have a quick silly question. What does KCC stand for?
Kansas
Kansas.
Corporate Commission.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank
I've heard so many acronyms lately.
Okay, I'm here to talk about Kansas One Gas also.
Introduce yourself, please.
What?
Introduce yourself.
Christy Upham, and I'm here to talk about Kansas One Gas also. They have been, as you know, nobody knows anything about what's going on. We just happened to find out about it from that letter that we got. And they won't return our phone calls for 3 weeks. We've been making phone calls. They have not returned them, given us any information. They've trespassed on 3 landowners' property without their permission. And so, and they have it going through their property and now Taylor Road, and they want to put 100-foot swath through there. It's a transmission line, not a distribution line. They're a lot more dangerous than a distribution line. And once it's in, you can never build on that property 100-foot swath through there, all the way to Liberty Hall Road to K-18 for eternity. So there won't be any development ever all the way through, so you have to understand, now, I don't know how you guys feel about that, but the potential hazards to them, as you might know about the gas transmission lines, are a lot bigger than a distribution line, are possible explosions, fires, leaks, and people can die because they're very, very potential hazardous. And I wanted to find out how you guys feel about that gas line going through that wide of an area, all the way from 040 all the way through to Liberty Hall Road to K-18.
I'm not sure why you're asking, you were trying to stop development there anyway, so, I don't have enough information to make a decision on, and to give that to you right now.
That's the same way when I talked to you. I think if this was about, when you contacted me about this gas, you'd gotten the letter too. I feel like we need to do our homework and contact those that seem to be getting this information out and do our due diligence in finding out what's going on that side of it, because there obviously can be, concern there that you bring up, and they should address all those issues.
Yeah, and KCC advised us to appeal to you guys and to the county attorney to assist us in this situation, because one of the people we talked to said, you don't want to destroy your personal property. You don't want this going
Well,
through
Desiree
it.
says in one of her comments, maybe this is gonna happen, and I think if it's maybe, I think we would need more concrete information before we pursue it.
I agree. They won't return our phone calls. We can't get any information.
We can, I don't mind checking and see if we can get information, but.
Right.
Then
Yes.
it would come better from legal.
Yeah.
So,
Is that anything that you can do to assist us?
Well, she
Just checking.
would not be assisting you. She would
No,
be assisting
she
us to
assists
find
us.
out information. We cannot fight on your behalf or your property.
Do
But
we have a
what we
right to
can-
that information?
If they give me information, I'll give it to you. There's no reason for me not to.
The
But they might
correspondence-
not give it to us either.
But the correspondence between the attorney and KCC, can we be kept in the loop on that? So that
well,
we
I
know
would
what,
hope so.
since we are the property owners involved?
But like Trish said, she's already talked to the representatives, and we hope that they would be digging into this.
Well, I'll call them again tomorrow, because I told them, I asked them if they knew anything about a pipeline, because I didn't have any other information. And they said they didn't know anything about a pipeline. And I didn't know whether it was, because I know there was somebody talking about energy too, and so that's why. I was
Christie,
curious.
didn't our conversation, and I can't find it on my phone, but didn't I forwarded it to, because you had included Troy Livingston, GIS in that conversation. Did you not hear from any of those people? Back in April,
And then whose people, what people?
GIS.
GIS, you had contacted several people, and I can't find it on my
And I
phone.
turned my ears all the way up.
And we talked to.
I talked to Troy.
Okay, yeah, I don't have it.
But Troy didn't know anything
Yeah,
either.
well, that's what, okay.
Well,
And
we
that's
got-
what I think we
All
need to
We gotta move
contact.
along because we got another
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
appointment.
Okay, my name is Karen Augustine, and my husband and I have property, when you come off Taylor Road, to Old 40 and take a right, the immediate left into our driveway. And yes, we do rent out the property. And our renter told us that the surveyors came on the property, she caught them surveying and told them they were trespassing, they needed to leave. They told her, the gas company told them to get the survey done no matter what. No, it was unacceptable not to get it done. And they pretty much just ignored her, but she ran them off. And the neighbors across the street used to be Jim Nixon's house. My understanding is they ran them off too. But do I understand that whatever information you guys can get on this, we will be in the loop.
Oh, yeah,
And
absolutely.
if they are in fact wanting to do that, what is your position on it? If they're in fact wanting to run lines through our property.
I am not gonna make a statement on what my opinion is on something I do not know anything about.
That makes sense.
Nothing.
So,
You know?
What do you think of how it's proceeded so far?
I have no idea what the procedure is on this, so I am not gonna make, I cannot talk about only what I hear on one side.
And
What happened years ago on the old pipeline that's south of Old 40 that is on your property too? What happened there? Were the property owners aware of it? Was it public knowledge?
yeah, they were,
Yeah, it was public
Desiree,
knowledge.
you're cutting into
yep.
Karen's
We got,
time.
before Desiree or anybody got a hold of you guys, you were unaware of this and, is that
No.
what I understand?
I had no clue.
Okay, I just want to make sure I
However-
understood that part.
just for grins and giggles, I got something from the Kansas Gas Service to know whether we wanted, fill out a survey for safety.
Pipeline.
I got one of those.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, we got a, now I'll give it a couple more minutes. Anybody else got something to share?
Nobody else wants to put a comment? You just came to hang out with us? Nice.
Did you bring your popcorn?
We were told you'd have it.
That's not in the budget this year.
You got a minute,
Yeah.
I'll ask you about them speed limit signs again. I'm Randy Petra, live out on Old 40. I don't see the man here.
He'll be here in a little bit.
Yep,
Okay. That's all I want to know.
you're gonna stick around.
That's what I want to talk about.
Got one thing,
Scott,
just got one, the speeding on 177, it's more than an issue when from Lower McDowell to Hoffman Road is turned into a drag strip at 2, 3 in the morning.
Did you talk to the sheriff?
I have briefly about it, and every once in a while, we'll see patrol cars, and they'll pull somebody over, it'll last about 2 weeks, and then it's back to it
this has
again.
always been an issue.
Oh, yeah, I know it has.
Well, I know the new sheriff has made a point that they have zones now and they're to spend time in the rural community. And so I would call again and tell them that you've been having this ongoing issue and
Well, since summer started up again,
I bet, yeah.
started
So
hard.
Scott, what I'll do, I'll text you, the undersheriff's number.
Okay.
And you can contact him.
Yep.
You probably know him, so.
Yeah. I think I met him at Fuel Point one day.
Yeah.
When I was putting fuel
So
on the
why
fire.
don't I do that,
Yeah.
and we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, they've been
Okay.
more proactive about doing stuff out in rural areas, so.
Okay.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
Crystal, you ready?
Good evening, Commission. Crystal Malchus, HR Director. One department head out of office notification form. At gentle persuasion from my staff, I'm taking a day off.
Oh, denied.
No, you're not allowed. I happen to have my grandson for a few weeks, so I'll take my grandson and granddaughter and we're gonna have a 4-day weekend.
Fun.
And then just as an FYI, later this week, as a reminder for everybody watching, the county offices are closed on Thursday in recognition of Juneteenth. We'll reopen on Friday. Next week, I will be out Friday morning. I'll be speaking at the CALD conference in Manhattan. And then Wednesday, I'm at the KAC board meeting in Topeka. But other than that, we'll be available. Still working with other departments on their recruitment needs. And other than that, it's daily stuff. So any questions for me?
No, but I've been meaning to tell you that Atchison County Commission contacted me and told me they appreciated your help that you gave them not too long ago and that they really appreciated it.
Oh, I'm glad I could help. Okay, well, I'll be here for a little bit, so if you guys get to anything else,
So you're on for 4 tomorrow afternoon.
4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon.
It's quick. No executive session.
We had something.
No, I'm meeting with them.
Oh.
Chris.
I just thought that too, I thought, okay. Oh,
You ready?
Give me just a second to get it turned on.
Yep. While she's doing that, thank you all for coming tonight.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. We would have been really lonely.
Did you sign?
Well, I could write his name in.
Troublemaker.
Yeah.
who's been really quiet?
Alright, this better not be the deal.
It might
That's
be
what
your
it said the
computer.
other day.
You know, I think this is a new, this
Oh,
is
it's a
a
different
different
one.
one, so the only thing would be is if it's just.
Everybody else is signed in, yeah.
That's
Okay,
what
thank you.
last one.
I know, and I used it earlier today too.
Oh, yeah, you
Maybe
did.
there's a short in it.
That's what I'm wondering, if there's a short. Cause I did twist it just a little bit earlier and.
Did it work?
Mhm. Mhm.
Well, Louisa will feel better that it wasn't.
I was
her.
just gonna say, please tell Louisa that, because she
Yeah.
was so upset.
She was. I love technology.
Yeah. I wouldn't say it that way.
Don't we have a shorter cord somewhere that we had used earlier? I was thinking that we had. Because the last one, we had a really short.
Look under there and see if it's under there.
I'm gonna switch it out and see.
Yeah, go to the next door to the other meeting.
Thank you. Thanks for
Busy
coming.
night.
That don't fit.
No, it took me a little bit to, Louise had to come help me because I couldn't get it.
Well.
You want to try it on my computer?
Hold on a second, let me just. It's probably me just not being able to see it going in there, right? There.
Glasses.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the cord.
Yep.
Good, that makes me feel better about the other computer now.
Yeah.
Okay. I just about said good morning, commissioners, just like I got earlier today. Good evening, commissioners. Tammy Robinson, Finance Director, and I have our monthly reports that I was gonna go through with you today. So this first one I have up is the CIP cash flow. So at the end of May, we were at 41.67% into the year. And you can see that we had 10,483 in interest revenue that came in and 72,500 that we transferred in for the EMS reserve. And we spent 13,671 in May. So with the activity, that puts us at having spent 10% of our budget. And on the left-hand side, under the cash reconciliation box, you can see our ending unencumbered cash is 4.9 million. However, we do have some additional projects that have been approved, and that's just under 1.1 million. And in addition to that, right under there, the reserve box, that gives you our reserves. And if you take those into account, we have just under 2.8 million that is unreserved that could be used towards other projects as of the end of May. And then on your next page, you can see the expenditure activity by project, and the ones in blue are the ones that have been completed for the year. And clear over to the right, it also tells you if it came in over or under the projected amount that we had originally approved. Are there any questions with that?
No?
Okay. We'll go on to the building cash flow analysis. Again, 41.67% into the year as of May 31st. And on the left-hand side, under the cash reconciliation box, you can see that after the activity of the ins and the outs, that we have 646,625 in the account. There is one project, a larger project that has been approved for 12,000. So when you take that into account, we actually have just under 635,000 that we can work with on anything that comes up. We spent 18.56% of our budget at this point in time. Any questions on the?
And that's just for 2025.
That's just for 2025. And if you recall, we moved a little bit of extra cash into CIP and the facility fund. Largely, the facility fund was for the large expenditures we had on the jail from previous year. And the CIP is to just try to keep it healthy and move some money in there when we have the ability to do that. The next one is the sales tax that we'll look at. So this goes through May, and Sherry, the treasurer, does send you a report. I break it down and give you some more statistics on it, just so that you have additional information should any taxpayers ask you about it. It breaks it out between the county sales tax and the hospital dedicated tax, which is for that older hospital bond. And you can see the total that we've received to date there in that green box. And then beside that, it tells you how much we've received and the percentage received. So you can see at this point in time, we've received 55.7% of our county tax budgeted amount. And on the hospital dedicated, we're at 44.2%. And then if you compare it to 2024, we're actually over 2024 on the county sales tax by 82,900, and we're over on the hospital dedicated tax by 41.5 thousand. The acorn is a negative, and if you recall, the reason it's a negative is because we no longer have that CID tax flowing through. And so you would expect that. The only thing that we had was just the trickling in of it finishing off, because that was ended in October of 24.
And just to be clear for the public, so we're 41.67% through the year.
Right.
We're over, but 55.7% on county.
On what we've collected, yes.
And 44.2, so we're over at 41.
Right,
Once it's-
right. And the hospital one's the one that we're really keeping an eye on because we've been very aggressive in how we budget that one because in our plan, when we took out the new hospital bond, was that we intended for that hospital sales tax to be used primarily for that debt so that we do not have to levy anything. We haven't been levying anything in that fund for that bond. We paid off the no fund warrants last year, and in paying that off, that was the end of any levy for that fund. So we do have some reserves that had been levied in previous years that had been sitting in that fund. So anything that the sales tax is not covering, then those reserves are paying that difference, which keeps us from having to levy any of the sales tax for the debt, for that debt. We do still have the new bond, and that is paid as a lease through PVC, and we do levy for that as an operating cost, but not as a long-term debt, because PVC does pay that debt.
Tammy, would you tell me, I wasn't here when the CID money for Acorn transpired, but these in the negative, how is that?
We're no longer collecting it
Right,
at all.
but why are you showing in the negative?
Well, the reason in that middle section, that's just comparing 24 to 25.
So you're
So-
just carrying those numbers over
Right.
this year, okay.
Right,
okay.
so you can see our dollars last year were higher than they are now,
Okay.
and the reason is because it ended. So
Okay,
I shouldn't really say it's negative, but it's no longer being collected, which
Right.
makes it
Yeah,
seem like
yeah.
it's negative.
okay.
Anything else on those?
No, I'm good.
Well, and then
Thank you.
also for the public too, the compensating tax is the tax we get from internet sales.
Right. Yes.
Or any other gas sales. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. The next one is the Compa cash reports, and this is just so the commissioners have their information in front of them that shows that we do have all of our cash that we balance between departments reconciled. So this first report is the actual bank inside our CIC software. You can see our total cash is the 45,353, 213. And then if you look at our next report, which is our fund status report, which is actual activity inside our financial software. So not the banking side of it, but the actual general ledger side of it. So you can see again on page 9 of this report that our cash matches that previous report of 45,353, 213. And then as a double check and a statute requirement, we also reconcile with the treasurer's office. And so they do their duplicate statement daily. And so at the end of the month, we make sure that their report matches our reports. And you can see at the bottom, it shows again the 45,353, 213. Any questions on the cash? Okay, and then I have one more report to go through, and this is the year-to-date expenditure activity and the revenue activity. So on this report, we have all of the funds, and again, we're through May, so we're at that 41.67% into the year. The ones in blue are the ones that have exceeded that 41.67% in the year. We look at that to make sure that if we need to consider any budget amendments in November, we're tracking that. We have an idea why, or if we do not need to be concerned about it. And in this case, looking at the library and economic development, both of those are cyclical. So it's based on the timing of when those expenditures go out. And so we're just a little bit over on economic development, and that's because half of our expenses go out at the beginning of the year and the other half go out in July. We did have one invoice come through that should have been sent to us in January, but we did not get it until April, and so we paid that immediately upon receipt. The library, again, that's based on the timing of the distributions. So neither one of those funds are any concerns as far as whether we're going to meet our targets and staying within budget. The general, while we are just a little bit over that, again, just as a reminder, we moved some money over into CIP and we moved some money over into the facility fund to help with some of those costs. So that pushed us a little higher than we normally would be at this time of the year. We did have 27 pay periods in or not 27, I'm sorry, 3 pay periods in January, which increases our payroll, that extra pay period, which pops us up just a little higher than we normally would be. As well, we do our beginning of the year transfers, and those are in total. And the other thing that affects this is our appropriations go out in January and in July. So all of those things have pushed us over just a little bit higher than we would expect. Again, I don't feel like it's a concern at this point. We can keep an eye on it if anything else happens, but all of those factors make sense as to why we're just a little bit beyond that 41.67% mark. And then we have the next page that just shows you the rest of the funds, and you can see none of those were in the blue. So are there any questions on the year-to-date expenses? Okay, the next report, it gives you your general fund by department, and this just helps us to look at that general fund a little more detailed to see like maybe where we're off on our percentage as paying a little bit higher. Almost all of those factors that I provided for you as to why we're a little bit over are within that general service, which is over our 41.67%. Then the other point is GIS, and they have a pictometry that they spend at the beginning of the year. And so it takes a little while for their budget to even back out based on that large expense at the beginning of the year. So again, we'll keep an eye on the general service, but at this point in time, I don't have any concerns or recommendations for adjustments or anything that we need to do. Are there any questions on that?
No.
Okay, then the only other thing we have left on this report is our revenue. And so this, again, just gives you the information of what we budgeted and what we've collected at this point in time. And it tells you what percentage we are based on that budget. And then, of course, we're at 41.67% into the year. So there's nothing on here that concerns me. Are there any questions from the commission for that?
The alcohol program is a little low.
So that's based on the distributions of when they come in from the state. And so one thing that's interesting about this, and this is something that we've adjusted since then, is that money comes in and it goes into the alcohol program, the Fund 16. But then by statute, a portion of it goes to Parks and Rec and a portion of it goes to the general fund. So we're adjusting it so that we're no longer posting that all as revenue in our special alcohol. We're posting the portion that stays in alcohol in there. And then we're posting the portion that's supposed to be in the Parks and Rec and the portion that's in the general as the revenue there. So we have made that adjustment.
And then
A good question.
No, 048,
Sorry, I missed that.
048, the very last one.
So Geary.
Yeah, that's up to that's within the sheriff's purview. So, and actually he presented some numbers to us this year as far as what we're going to estimate for revenue. But in the past, this was put in as estimated numbers, and we did not know for sure if those were true targeted numbers or not. So I do think that he's going to watch that more closely as we move forward, because he gave me estimated numbers and I never got those in the past. And so I have to take what he gives me going forward based on his history. But in this case, and if you remember, this was an outside checking account. We didn't really have true information on there. So when we put that in and we're building it, we were building it just based on an estimated amount that we didn't know for sure if it would hit the target or not. Now, the good thing about this is it is not tax revenue dollars. And so it doesn't affect anybody paying taxes. It's literally just an estimate of what we think we might get and then the ability to spend it should the sheriff determine it needs to be spent, but.
But it goes in the general fund now.
Mm-mm. No, that's Fund 48. It has its own fund. Yeah.
And then the only other one is convention and tourism.
32,
Oh, yeah, 32.
and it is low.
Yeah.
So when we worked on the budget this year, one of the things that we have to do is go back and estimate what we expect to see in 25 so we can build a beginning cash balance for 26. So my recommendation to the director at that time was to decrease what we expected. So we're expecting more like around 650 this year instead of this 823. But that was a different director and now we have a new director. And the previous year, we did have 800,000, but it has been lower. And part of that could be all this construction that we've had, because that did definitely affect a lot of whether people came in or not. We couldn't even get off the exits on several of them.
Good point.
So I do think it has had an impact on these numbers, whether it will continue or not. We will have to wait and see on that because we still have trouble with some of our exits based on the construction. And it's gonna be about the activity that the new CBD director puts into play and whether more people come or not. So there's a lot of factors to that we don't know yet. But we are estimating that it's gonna be a little lower based on some of those
Well, this
factors.
construction's been 3 years.
And, yeah, and then
And it's hurt our sales tax too. And
compared to what we have in the past, yeah, or,
Yeah,
we definitely need to keep an eye on that. I think that having them only do 2 closed exits instead of all 4 like they did last year will help us for this year.
they're doing a lot better this year.
Yes,
I think.
well, I think, and
And
I
phases.
sent him an email. I know Nate Butler had reached out and said, hey, you're hurting our businesses here, and so.
No, other than that, that's all I had.
good questions. Anything else? Okay, so there were just a couple of things that I wanted to mention. Kaylin from Public Works and I both attended a grant writing workshop on 6/11. Was really good information on there. It helped me to identify a weakness that I definitely can see that I'll have, and so that's a part that somebody else should write and I could just proof it. I'm more black and white and they want something very definitive. For instance, if you want to give a statistic, they want to see you say, we will have 60% increase. And that's hard for me because if I don't know for certain that it's going to be a 60% increase, it's hard for me to say, we're going to have a 60% increase. I want to say I expect the 60%, and that's not what the grant writers want. So that was a good thing for me to understand that what I think you would want to say, and being as honest as you could, you have to be confident when you're writing these grants, and so confidence.
And it is all about how you word them.
Yes, and they very clearly told me that they're not gonna come back and tell you, well, you only hit 40 instead of 60%, so you're not gonna get the money. So that was good to hear as well, that, and I knew they wouldn't take the money away. It's just that in my mind, I was not as, I'm going to meet 60%. I expect to meet 60%. So I'm like, oh, somebody else will write that part and I'll just be like, I'll know that that's what I need to tell them. Yeah, that's what I need to say. So that was kind of interesting. And then Crystal and I went to the Tech Edge conference Next Tech puts on in Salina on the 12th, because we don't have an in-house IT department. And so it's good for us to stay on top of some of those trends that they're seeing on what's happening. And one of the things that they put some focus on that has not been in the past is the operational tech side. the hackers are getting, and they're not moving away from information technology, but what they're doing is they're adding the operational side. So they break into HVACs, they break into water systems, and, they pollute them and create issues that way. And I'm like, so we never want to drink our water again now. It's kind of scary that this is the things that people are doing now to try to, basically it harms other people. And so definitely every time I go and listen to them, it's a scary topic that they talk about. And then the last thing I just wanted to let you know is that the clerk's office put out their valuations today. And so our valuation at the county level is $315,364,800. And so based off of what our valuation was at November last year, it's a 3.9% increase.
What was that again, 315?
364,800.
Comes up a little bit.
A 3.9% from our November valuation last year. And Travis had said it was around 4.3%, and that's maybe from the July to July. But looking at the actual in November, that's where we landed. So you'll be seeing those numbers.
Preliminary, it gets certified in November.
That's your actual, the November is your final, but this is what we use to build our budget.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that for the public.
Right. So,
I was gonna ask you that this afternoon.
yes. So that's it. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't think you just I can. I mean, I planned on it.
Did you want Tammy to stay for the crazy discount?
Yeah, if you want.
Thanks.
So I'm gonna take this long cord and I'm gonna ask Trent to switch it out because
Yeah.
I think that's definitely the problem.
Yeah.
Is that why we found the short one? Yep. Come on, Jeremy, we're ready for you.
Come on, Jeremy. Come on down.
Ready for me to clock in here?
Yeah.
Good evening, Commission. Director Myers, Public Works Administrator. First thing this evening for you is a Ritter Road K-18 TEEP study update. I did receive an email notification on 6/13/25 that KDOT has sent out notification looking for interested qualified engineer firms to conduct that TEEP study. So it looks like it's going to roll forth and take place.
Nice.
Next is a Purple Wave auction set up for August 19th, 2025. That'll be our next Purple Wave auction. All department heads have been notified so they can gather any items they wish to list on that, and we'll coordinate that to get that going. GIS zoning camera and electronic door entry update. We received 2 additional quotes for the equipment necessary to add the camera and electronic door entry. Ready Systems gave us a quote of $3,359.21. They actually provided 2 quotes. That first number there was for 1 airphone, which would be in just 1 office only. Second is for 2 airphones at $4,993.67 for the 2. We did receive 1 also from Performance Audio. Theirs is listed as 2 monitors instead of airphones. Their cost is $6,185. And just to bring back that Next Tech quote, it was $7,894.08. So prices did get quite a bit cheaper than what I thought they would. Still pretty expensive project, but
So do we know what the benefit of the monitor versus the earphone? What the
no, I
pros and
said
cons of it?
they're just They would be similar, they're just listed as
Okay,
different devices.
just different things, okay.
Yeah, they would still operate in the
The
same
same way,
manner.
okay.
Yeah. So I guess with that, would commission like to pursue this any further, or what
I
do
do.
you think?
Yeah, I think we should.
Okay, I'll get with Tammy and finance and see where we might pay for this project from and then bring it back to you.
All right.
Well, yeah, I think it's well worth it.
I think it would simplify things up there for Troy
Yeah.
and then as far as getting into that building.
Well, and
the
people
public.
tell me that they have a hard time getting hold of Troy on the phone.
Right,
So,
okay. I will bring that back. Next, we have FEMA DR 4774 CAT Z deposit received. On 6/4/25, we received our final reimbursement deposit from FEMA for that January 2024 event. The amount was $6,567.38. And that was for the administrative costs of that project. So time that I spent, Kaylin spent, that we all spent administrative wise on that was reimbursed.
So do we know what our total cost was of the whole thing?
No, I don't have that number with me. It would be that number we advised before of
Yeah, I couldn't remember.
pretty substantial amount.
Yeah, it was. I was like, I
Plus-
don't even think it
plus
even.
this.
Better than nothing, though.
Exactly. Yeah. Next is the sheriff office admin flooding event on 6/11/25. We had another incident up there where a flush valve up above the admin area started leaking and flooded some offices down below. Thankfully, this was fresh water, not sewage water, as was experienced about a year ago from June of this year. Not as much damage. Carpet masters come in and did some cleaning and vacuum up the water. They pulled the cove base off the walls, drilled some holes, put some pipes in there, blow air in there to save the drywall and the carpet. So I think those items will be able to be saved. We're basically going to be looking at desks. There was some computers that got some water on them in those, but David Gilbert is working to get a list of those items together. I've contacted K-Camp, spoke with James Gambrell about it, and so once they get those items to me, we'll work with K-Camp to see what we need to do there. And we're looking at some other deals on that as well. I know there have been that discussion about those moisture sensors in the past. We finally did get a port put up there, so I'm working on getting some updated quotes on those. That way we can get that put in that facility, as well as the plumbing chases up above the admin area. We're gonna look at finding a rubberized product that we can spray in those and try to seal those off. That way that water doesn't come straight down those pipes that are cut through the concrete floor and get there. My thought is if we can get that done, get some moisture sensors put in there, we could be alerted a lot quicker and react a lot faster, get water turned off. So we'll keep working on that.
yeah, because it usually happens at night.
It does, yeah. I think this one was about 3 o'clock in the morning when it was found, so. And there was nobody in those cells. One of the guards up there walking the hallways just happened to hear what they thought was a shower running and went and looked in there, and it was in the plumbing chase that it had separated and started
Well,
spraying.
When the sheriff talked to us, it was the pressure spiked.
Yep,
In the
yep.
line.
Yep, that's
So
my
they were
understanding
set
as
for
well.
Like 85 PSI
Yep,
or whatever, and this spiked to 100.
yep. So they're gonna look at doing a pressure regulator in the facility as well, in that main water deal in sheriff's office. I will keep you updated as we go through this unwanted procedure again. Next is the Lions Creek Bridge narrowing. Narrowing of the structure was completed on 6/13/25, and all necessary warning signs were installed to alert motorists of the narrow path of travel. We also sent out a public notice. Don't know if you all have seen that or not, but we did get that out, just letting everybody know. So, and we will be looking for replacement options for that bridge here in the future. Currently looking at options, but replacement in the future. So try to keep that accelerated as well. Next is chip seal test run. crews did a test run today. Everything went good. We don't have hopeful weather the next couple days, and with Juneteenth holiday coming up, it's gonna shorten our week up a little bit, so we're anticipating hitting that full scale on the 6/23, the following Monday. But I was good to see that all of our equipment worked as should, and the guys kind of fell right back into place from last year. So a lot of coordinating goes on with that operation, so it takes everybody thinking through the process.
How do you think the crack sealing's gonna, I mean, that's gonna be a big help.
I think it is, yeah, I think it's very, very beneficial to do that prior to chip sealing. Seal those cracks up so the moisture can't get down in there and continue to deteriorate the road. Last thing I got's noxious weed department additional chemical order. 2025 bid was awarded to Van Deest. Jason reached out to them about placing a second order. They will honor their bid price on everything except for 2,4-D amine, which has seen an increase from $15.19 a gallon to $17.29 a gallon. That's $2.10 increase per gallon. He's looking at needing 180 gallons of that, so that would cost the increase of $378. Quantities needed to complete the year, he's got 180 gallons of 2,4-D amine at $17.29 a gallon for $3,112.20. 130 gallons of Tordon 22K at $44.09, $5,731.70. 30 gallons of dicamba at $24.97 a gallon, $749.10. 20 gallons of Sunset at $13.04 a gallon, $260.80. And 6 gallons of Plateau at $101.89 for $611.34. Total order would be $10,465.14. Chemical line for 2025 was budgeted at $59,000. First chemical purchase was $35,091.26. With the addition of this, we give a total of $45,556.40. That would leave $13,443.60 in the 2025 chemical line budget. So I would ask commission to approve a second chemical order from Van Deest for the noxious weed department.
For the 10,000.
$10,465.14.
A second.
Been moved and seconded. Regarding the recommendation for noxious weed, all in favor say aye.
Thank you. And that's all I have for today.
Wow.
Commission have anything for me?
Did you talk to?
I did. Yep.
Okay, that's the speed limit signs.
Yep, I was out and looked at that. I will gather some information, bring it back to commission at a later date and see how you guys would like to move forward with it. So,
Sounds good, thank you.
Appreciate it.
yep, it's been. Ball game time, man.
Hope it cooled off a little bit.
Oh, I do. Nice warm day. So, thank you.
You bet. Thanks, Sheriff.
Good to see all y'all. Thanks for coming.
Can you see Charles up there?
Yeah, he was here, I saw him.
I was gonna say he was here.
He was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll find him,
Okay.
right?
Your eyeballs be much, yeah. I couldn't get that milestone. License to life, same as Cordon.
Now we lost Keith.
I got
Hey, how's it going?
just great.
It's been a long day for you. I believe it.
Love having commission meetings at 7 o'clock at night.
Did you get my email request for?
Oh, no.
Yes. He was in this morning and I said, oh, did you know they refunded you? And I said, he said, well, I probably get a copy of that. And then I spaced it out.
No,
So
when he came and asked me if it went through, and I said yes. And he said, okay, I just want to make sure. Did you copy the resolution? I said, I'll make sure to ask Teresa.
yeah, he said he has to send it to the state or something.
Tiffany teased him and said, no, got a flat tail job now. I know.
Hi, Charles.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. You ready?
I am ready. I didn't know if you had to go into the board. of health.
Yep. We need a motion.
I'm gonna move to, open as the Board of Health.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to open as a public board of health. All in favor? Aye.
Hey, I'm Charles Martinez. I'm the Health Department Director. So this month, there's been a lot going on. In the notes I sent you, they're not completely updated. At the time we send it, things have changed since then. So I'm going to talk about the WIC funding after going over the data real quick. For our diseases, everything's looking good. Any illnesses going around, everything's dropping. The only strange case of something we had one case of malaria here, but they did not catch it. Or they didn't catch it in Geary County. They came from West Africa as a missionary, so it's nothing to be concerned about.
How are we on measles?
On measles, so it's coming to a standstill. It's spreading slower than what we expected. In the counties that it hit, there was a barrier that acted like a firewall with herd immunity. So a lot of the places that were hit, they didn't have herd immunity in those counties, but it doesn't seem to be crossing a line. So we're doing pretty good for Kansas, and we have 0 in Geary County. For acute respiratory illness seen in the ER, that's dropped. Same with RSV, and COVID stayed about the same. It jumped up 0.1%, but that's nothing serious. Influenza, that's dropped, and GI issues, that's actually up, but it's around where we would expect it. On average, it's about 15% of the visits in the ER. For our WIC appointments, we're seeing our typical amount. That's changing now, and I'll explain that after. For training, we have the leadership training. We had 2 staff members attend. one attending the Patagonia, which is our electronic medical record, and one who became Safe Kids certified. So they're a car seat technician now. We partnered with a bunch of different agencies. And for staffing, we hired a new clinic supervisor. And the only vacancy was our dietitian. For the facility updates,
What's the RN you just hired as the clinical supervisor?
no. So,
I would recommend you allow him to finish with this update. He'll get back to you.
yeah, it gets
I'll
complicated.
convolute it here in just a minute.
So for the facility updates, we had a leak in our roof and Public Works took care of it. We discovered it when it was raining heavily. Now for the other interesting stuff.
Drop the other shoe.
So, I dropped the other shoe.
It's a drop the other shoe.
Oh, here's the other shoe coming down. So there was federal cuts to WIC funding for the state. We found out how much we were getting cut for the grant cycle for 2024 to 2025, and it ends in the end of September. We lost 44% of our budget with that. Then on Friday, we got word that they are not renewing our contract for the WIC clinic for 2026. So with the cuts in the budget and the not renewing the contract, we had to let the WIC staff know we're losing 2 of them on the 20th this month. And with the nurse that we were going to hire, we were not able to hire her. So our former clinic supervisor, she moved in February to, she took the job as the WIC coordinator. So we're able to move her back since she has more experience.
She's an RN.
Yes, she's an RN. So she is moving back to the clinical side to continue as the clinic supervisor.
So only one person's gonna lose their job?
No.
No,
So 2 people still, even with keeping the one on?
correct.
Okay.
We had been made up of 3 full-time employees.
Yes.
Why, what was the reason for the not,
So Geary County, we were getting between our WIC clinic and Kansas WIC clinic. We were receiving more funding than most counties for our population. In fact, we were the top one for our population by a lot. And so I believe it came down to they have a dietitian and we don't, and that's one of the requirements. We were working off of a waiver for a dietitian.
So are they gonna be able to absorb the people at Kansas?
So I was working that issue
That's a
today.
big number.
It is 4 times more than what they normally see. And so what we're doing is we're trying to send the clients out. We're asking where they want to go, to any other counties. But we're also getting them into Kansa. I'm not sure how Kansa is going to handle that. I'm working with their CEO to figure this out. Because I mean, it's 4 times more clients and they're also getting a budget cut too.
So, next question. All right, so they're gonna receive funding and we're not, correct?
Correct.
Is there a way we can do a partnership?
yeah, that's what I was thinking, I'd do whatever it is, 46 here.
Well, we could do a partnership, but there's not enough funding to go around.
Yeah, because then you have to double your staff. You know what I mean? That's probably mostly what it goes to is the staff.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know, it just doesn't seem fair.
This job's in-
It's, I mean, there's just not enough money to go around, you know. We're trying to figure out how
the other counties, other WIC departments are gonna be able to handle this. No, Dickinson County reached out to the state today about it, because they
Did they
said
lose theirs, or they just reduction?
a reduction. But they're not, they said they cannot take on any more patients.
Well, didn't you tell me that nobody was immune to this? I mean,
No, I've got,
it was statewide.
it was statewide. I've got a list of how much everyone was getting cut. Some of them were less than us, but others were more. It was just, I don't know what formula they used to figure it out.
Another one of those mandates increasing pressure on local resources. Is
Yeah.
what it boils down to.
So, starting on the 20th, well, actually starting now, we're referring the patients out and we're rescheduling the appointments to where we can get them in. And we're going to continue that until the end of this grant cycle. Once this ends, we will no longer have WIC.
Yeah, when is that drop dead date?
September 30th. But as of right now, we're not able to take in appointments. The state wants us to refer everyone out.
I didn't realize we got cut 44%.
On when we first heard that it was the 44%,
Now we got cut 100.
and
I mean, when he sent this out, it was a 44% cut, and then since then, they've cut everything.
Right, right.
so it's for the two different grant cycles. This one's the 44% for our current cycle.
For 25.
Yes, and then it's
Then it'll be
100% for
100% for the
2026.
whole.
So within that May timeframe, then 543 people receive benefits that will have to go elsewhere.
Yes,
It's terrible.
I know, that's a lot.
That is a ton.
and I'm very concerned on the other agencies being able to handle it.
Especially if they've taken cuts.
Yes. So that was one of my concerns. They're not,
Have you talked to Kanza about it?
I've been trying to get a hold of their CEO, but she's been in meetings. We've been playing phone tag.
Okay. So maybe they might be able to hire at least one of our employees so they're not out. You know, if they're gonna have to, I mean, because somebody's gonna have to take care of these 500 and some people that we were taking care of.
So I'm not sure if they would be able to hire because they got a pretty decent cut too.
Yeah, but how are they gonna take care of I mean,
Yeah.
they're doubling their
Yeah.
load at least, if not more.
Talk to the feds.
Yeah. You know, hopefully we can figure something out and those people will be addressed, you know, be able to take care of. So,
Well, I'm sorry to hear that, Charles.
It was disappointing. I mean, the staff worked really hard to have their numbers as good as they were. And for it to come down from the state that they're not renewing the contract. But they're handling it well.
We did encourage the staff that are being let go to view our current listings and apply. They'd be considered for any positions that we have, or if they needed references, that Charles and I would be able to work together to provide a reference for them.
Well, I may be speaking out of turn here, but, you know, maybe reach out to Stormont Vale as well. There might be something there.
I can do that.
Talk to Tracy and see.
I know it is bad news for this month, but, things will pick up.
And the reason, again, for the cuts was because they are being cut from the feds to the
Yes,
state. and
it's
state
from the
to
federal government.
To the local governments.
Yes.
And then the state's picking and choosing.
Yeah. Some of our representatives too are concerned with this.
Now, I was throwing a Hail Mary when I asked if there was an appeal process or anything like that, but the state they haven't answered me. And I doubt that there is, because not like a negative thing they're doing. They're just not renewing the contract. They're not taking the contract away from us.
Yeah.
That's everything I have.
Thank you. I'll make a motion to come out of Board of Health. I'll second.
Been moved and seconded to close the meeting of the Public Board of Health. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I feel like I left it on a down note.
Yeah. I don't know about you, but we're ahead of schedule, but 7:30 is the discussion about the TGT. And I think there's gonna be people coming to that, so if you don't mind, we'll just go ahead and do commission review and update. Change the agenda a little bit.
That's fine. Well, I'll go first. The sheriff asked, me to, participate in the CLIA interviews. They were interviewing people from all parts of the county and community and sat and had about an hour, talk and just talked about, how important CLIA, getting certified is or accredited is and all the steps that they've taken and they really have that group has done a great job over the last 2 years, 3 years almost, working through that despite the changes in leadership so I'm really proud that they were able to do that. I went to the Child Care Coalition meeting. There's a press release out today about the grant, and that it explains all the different things that we're going to be concentrating on, like the non-traditional hours of the daycare, provider support and training, just different things that we're going to be doing.
What is the ages that are going to be renewed?
For the school?
Yeah.
3 and 4 year olds. Yeah. Mhm. And that won't be open until August of 2026. So, went to a ADC meeting first and, nothing really there to talk about, just gave a couple of updates on things and then went to a DSIP meeting. They, are plugging along on that. Hopefully they're gonna have it done. They're almost done. We just were some wording they wanted and some additions they want to put in there, but it's due July 3rd, but they're wanting to get it done prior and get it in as soon as possible. Jana, I think, is gonna look at one of the final drafts, just to make sure we've got our I's crossed or T's crossed and I's dotted and go from there. So, and then she did mention this today in her update. Flint Hills Flint Hills Regional Council did another grant for the city of Milford. It was a towns grant, and you could get up to $10,000 for projects. And they were awarded up the $10,000. There's only 5 of the $10,000 awardees, and they were one of them. And they're going to be using it for lights on the new helipad for the Lifestar. They put a helipad out there, and so they're using that grant to pay for the lights. So that'll be good for people that are out on the lake, and if they need to get Lifestar out there, they'll be able to have quicker access. So that's all I have.
I just had the employee task force meeting. It was short and sweet. They did talk about the lack of communication, I guess, with this Big Brothers Big Sisters program with the unit in Manhattan. So they have decided that they're not going to no longer try to partnership with that and come up with someone else to be the charity that they want to support, so that's unfortunate. I had a brother, a little sister when I was, for years, and, we didn't have a lot of participation here, but it was, hopes that they would get it started again and have that program, because it is a good program for the little kids. They are gonna partnership with, the JCPD with Shop with a Cop, which is gonna be a golf tournament and going to be held October 4th. And they'll, split the proceeds, which I think is a good deal, partnering with them instead of having two golf tournaments, which one, might be smaller than the other, and this way it can be a larger golf tournament. So I think that's a good idea. And then they're working on Junction Function, that I think we're trying to come up with some ideas for fundraising to support the community.
Yeah, I know that Junction Function was brought up when I went to the task force meeting before.
Yep, we're looking at ideas, for the Junction Function to do
They don't have that anymore.
that. No,
Yeah.
something
They
similar
haven't
to
had
that.
for a few years now.
Yeah.
County version of Junction Function.
Yeah, a version.
They were fun.
Yeah.
That was fun.
It was always.
Yeah, that was a fun time. I forgot, I did go to, actually spend a couple hours down at the Juneteenth celebration on Saturday, and that was actually, it was the 30th anniversary, and they really did a good job this year, and it was hot, but it was a lot of fun and had good food, and one of the favorite things I was there, I made sure I was there for the Topeka High marching band. They were tremendous. They are, if you've never seen them, they're amazing. So
The drum line.
the drum line, yeah.
Yeah, I was there.
Amazing.
I missed it.
Mhm.
I didn't stay as long as I would have liked. I was at dance competition from 8 in the morning till 7:30 at night, sitting there, so that kind of took me from my day.
So we had CBD last week. We talked about the transient guest tax. We talked about the sports complex. Talked about the state fair. So a lot of discussion there. I went to the Lieutenant Dam down at Fort Riley the other night. Well attended, very well attended. And it was a little warm, but it was okay. And then, I went down to Juneteenth, and I thought that was pretty well attended.
Yeah, it was really,
But the drum line,
yeah, they were
great.
I stayed there 2 hours just to wait for them, because I got there when they run and I welcomed people, and then I was like, I'm staying until
I
then.
saw DJ Giddens, he come up and grabbed me. And I went, what are you doing there? Yeah, that's been all I had last week. Teresa, do you have minutes while we're still waiting?
I do. Minutes from June the 9th, and I don't have any changes from anybody.
Right.
I'm good.
Do I hear a motion to approve?
I saw.
Second.
And moving seconded to approve June 9th minutes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Betsy, did you get a copy of this that Desiree gave us? That way you'd have contact cases.
The House Bill 2134, I did do some research on that, and I do think that really they're gonna have to screen that staff meeting more. Maybe you guys could rotate, just one of you attend, but if we're gonna, have all three commissioners there, we're gonna have to do it.
What's this for?
The, you have to do it, none or all of your meetings, you have to stream, so remember I said.
Oh, yeah.
The
So
staff
we do our
meeting.
staff. It's an open meeting, I mean, we've always had the door open, people are welcome, but we'll need to change that prior to, and it takes effect July 1.
So what we're doing now is fine.
No, we'll have to stream the staff meeting.
Or we'll have to stream
Oh,
staff
the
meeting.
staff meeting.
If all
I'm sorry.
three of you come,
Are gonna be-
we'll have to stream.
Okay, okay. See you, Randy. Desiree? See you.
Who are you waiting for?
I don't know, I don't know. Is there more people coming that you know? Okay. All right, then we will proceed with the community and guest tax discussion.
So, I put this on the agenda because, over the last 2 or 3 years, people have brought it up about increasing it. We recently received an email or a letter from both the chamber and the EDC about, raising it since, Manhattan is at 7.5, and Abilene is at 8%. So looking into that, I thought, I think it would be beneficial for our community to do this. And the reason why, I totally get that some of the hoteliers do not want this to happen. If we were gonna be over Manhattan, even with our own sales tax, I would definitely see the negativity of it and that it would possibly affect our business. But what I want to do with those funds is improve the sports stuff that we have here already. I think that we can invest some monies up in our 4-H fields, and even the rodeo area to bring people into our community. So that in turn will help the hoteliers. I have talked to Airbnb owner and definitely see her stance. But I feel, I represent everyone in the community. And so that's why I wanted to bring this to the commission to have a discussion on.
Yeah, I'm all for improving the quality of life here in Geary County. I mean, it's been an issue for years, and I think that, there's always two sides back and forth, whichever way you go, but I think it's important that these groups need to get together and work together to try to find out what's the plan. I really don't have a problem with it overall. Like with the 4-H fields, you'd mentioned regional, but there's not a lot of anywhere to go out there with the 4-H, for softball complexes. It had to be a new place.
Even if you just put one, you could, and then we could partner with the city, and then they have a softball field down on 12th Street.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we need to look at our local stuff first because a huge sports complex is not coming anytime soon.
Well, like I said, I agree that it's important to find some things for us to do here, and, sports complexes, that's one thing, something to improve the sports facilities, because, even up at North Park, I about lost my vehicle on the crater up there, and that was awful. I mean, I'm serious, it was
Yeah.
bad, and I'm not sure why that stuff like that's not being done, but, I guess and it would take groups sitting together and working together to come up with what do we want to do and make a plan. And then to me, because the money's been going into that sports fund since 2014 and nothing's been done with it. And I understand everybody's, how they feel about that, nothing happening then, but, gosh, we just need to work together to find out what's gonna be the benefit for our kids and the 55 plus people, because, you can understand the 55 plus people not necessarily that thrilled about it, because they don't want to necessarily go to the ball games, but what else will seniors want to do? You know, like a walking trail, they had mentioned that and something that Rick had put together, and that's an awesome thing to do, but, you know, I think, you know, Tricia, in your comment about it, you know, the transit gas tax does impact people in Geary County, because if they're not gonna come here according to the hotel people, then we aren't gonna get the sales tax, so indirectly, we are gonna have that issue. But, you know, like I said, I'm not against it, it's just discussion that we need
Sure.
to work it out and see what's the best for everybody.
And then that's why I suggested just the 7, because then we are not higher
the
than
what?
just 7%, the 1%. And we're not, because the Manhattan's at 7.5. And I think that in the past, the commissioners have kept it at 6 because our sales tax here in Geary County has been so much higher than everybody else as well. Manhattan's right on our tail. So doing the 7%, the 1%, you're still competitive. If you're competitive in your pricing of your hotel room, you're still competitive totally, I feel.
Well, my feeling is, I don't think this is a good time. I mean, first of all, let's be real blunt about this. Manhattan has more amenities, thank you, more attractions, more of a destination. Abilene as well. Manhattan's under the city. I think it's under Abilene City over there.
It is.
And I just don't know that we're so much out of sync. I think it puts us at a disadvantage when we're trying to compete for contractors and I know Raquel, her goal is to go try and bring in opposing football teams that play K-State, like we used to. And they're gonna, when they look at a contract, they look at that stuff. When we travel, we're gonna go no matter what. But knowing also the deployments that are gonna happen, I just don't know that now is the right time to do it.
If it was more
It's
than
always
1%,
been a
I
quandary
could
to me.
see. If it was more than the 1% that I'm suggesting, I could see, because basically,
But where are you gonna,
they're the same.
so you're gonna put the 1% towards the sports complex?
Well, that's another discussion we can have, but it could be its own entity, because it's not gonna generate that much more money as far as, you know, we're not gonna be able to build like a whole bunch of stuff, but it will be able to help us, the estimate, the 1% is bringing in about $100,000 a year. And so that could be used to improve what we have here to make things a little more attractive for people to come to our community.
Would there a resolution need to be changed then because it's?
Yeah, we would have to do a charter resolution, and then if we have a charter resolution, then there's an opportunity for people who are against it to file a petition to stop it.
So here's what, I mean, to piggyback on this, so we're sitting on what, roughly $800,000 in the sports complex? And
In the sports complex.
funds.
It's like 1.2, isn't it?
No,
It's
it should be.
some. And I think before we make any move on this, I think what we need to do is go back to what was suggested earlier and have a feasibility study to look at what do we have, what we need, before we do anything. I think that's the first step. And
We've had
to spend,
feasibility studies, we've had feasibility
Tammy,
studies.
the
So
1.2 is
outdated.
800, that's Fund 52. If you look at
Okay,
well, I was just looking at Sherry's report here.
Oh, the ones I gave you earlier, that fund,
Okay.
status report.
I'm sure.
You know, this was April.
But that
1st.
last one was so outdated. I think we need a more up-to-date,
Well,
Feasibility
I would like, I know there's two people here that want to speak about it, so I'd like to hear from them.
May I ask a question help me understand extended stay? There's 28-day period before they don't pay.
Right,
Right, is that
so any stay up to 28 days pays the transient guest tax. Anything over that no longer pays.
Because I thought that was gonna be an impact, and I thought I remembered somewhere along the line that there was a period of time that.
Right, yeah,
Something.
28 days or less
Okay.
is collection of the transient guest tax. Anything over that, then they're not considered transient anymore.
Yeah, right. So, but there is a day period that.
Correct.
Okay.
so based on your financials that you gave us last Tuesday, if I'm reading this right, there's 816,700,
816,000?
yeah, in the sports complex account.
There should have been, that they used it for, Breakthrough Field back
Yeah.
in 2018.
We spent 200,000 to help along
And
with the
that's fine,
city
but-
and the Bramlett.
What, you weren't supposed to use that because of the way that,
No, we
the
changed-
resolution was changed.
Yeah, because nothing was happening with sports.
I know, but it
complex.
should have been changed to a charter resolution, by charter resolution then, but I don't have a problem with that, using it for that, but that might be something that we want to do when we change this resolution. If we increase it, then we can put on there, using it, I mean, that might even help us even build more money if we do get a sports complex.
I wish we had specific, where we're gonna do this, because like I said, this, and whenever this was in 2016, that didn't ever come to fruition, but nonetheless, I think it would be easier to accept if somebody, we need to say specifically what we want to do. We want to make these improvements to North Park, and for me, it'd be easier, because I do have a problem with this, since 2016, us doing this and nothing being done with it, and I understand what's
Well,
going
it's
on.
hard
in the
because
meantime.
a sports complex is gonna cost $20 million.
Yeah, I know,
and
but
then-
they've got a nice one in Harrington, Kansas.
And then who's gonna run it?
Yeah.
I mean, and I think
Got
right
nice
now,
one
the
in
city and the
Belleville.
county, we don't have the bandwidth to do that right now.
But we had that presentation put before us, and we didn't act on it. And I think it was Adam Wilkie and Brett Dean were in here. And at that time, it was all geared towards State Park.
Yes.
And after talking more with Mr. Wilkie, he said, no, we probably messed up on that. It's countywide. We thought it's
He
State
said
Park.
state park and they insisted it was state park, and the reason why I didn't
Right.
agree to a feasibility
Because of
study on that
water.
was because of the water.
I know that.
Well, and I also, I don't think
And they weren't gonna, come to find out, State Park wasn't gonna.
gonna let him anyway, yes.
So, but talking to Mr. Wilkie now, it's like, no, this would be countywide, and they would look at everything that we have and any improvements we could make. So what I would suggest is and it doesn't have to be that company, but what he told me was that company gets investors and they run it, because I told him, I said, we don't have the staff, the city doesn't have the staff, Parks and Rec, we don't have a Parks and Rec. He said, no, they take care of if they see it feasible. So my recommendation would be to go ahead and proceed with some sort of feasibility study, to see what do we have that's really good and what are we missing before we pull the trigger on raising the guest tax. That's me.
Well, the one thing I was wanting to do is maybe add another softball field up at 4-H and then work on the rodeo, because those two things are county owned. We've already, we own those already.
And there's room up there. I thought years ago they talked about that when they're making improvements up there. And there wasn't, room up there for another ball field. I was trying
Tyler
to.
believed there was. I spoke to him about it.
And for parking and everything up there.
Yeah,
I guess, but that's what
all that-
conversation that
yeah.
we would need to have, but I just can't see I mean, they have to take away the arena for the animals and everything else to accommodate that? I guess that's,
No, there's all, yeah, I was gonna say it's all, yeah, that's all county property.
yeah, I know,
up
I
there.
remember a
Up to the
little bit
radio
about,
property.
Yeah, up to the radio
about that,
property.
yeah. I mean, that's what prompted the improvements that they did to the ballpark is because they talked
Have
about
you
that.
been in the bathrooms there?
That hasn't been, it's been a while, but, I know Hayes has good stuff. My nephews play ball, so we used to travel all over, and, now with dance, we go all over, and frankly, I don't, if I was thinking in my mind, what would bother me the most, but, if we go to Kansas City, went Liberty, Missouri, we Wichita, outside of Wichita and all those places, and when we look at a hotel room, we don't necessarily go we see it at the end of the day when we're paying, but we look at it when we're doing our online research. But I look at it where it's at, because if it's 1% more, but I don't have to go across town, or this is in this area and we can eat easily, that's where we're gonna stay. And, so I would think a lot of people would think in that, not like me necessarily, but that is to me factors when you're thinking about where you want to stay. Now, if I'm going to Florida and whatever, and if I'm gonna stay there a week, and I certainly look a little harder at what, those fees are, but,
I usually don't see them until it's time to pay for your bill.
Well, and some of them work.
they also have other taxes on there a lot of times.
Yep.
Well, and they
so
call it, one's a fee, one's a tax,
Right.
I mean, the fee is the tax. So,
But where the hotel people are gonna get an opportunity to speak,
yeah,
and certainly,
so
we wish there's more,
you don't have to, but I thought that's why you were here, Jason.
I came into, because it's a topic about my department, not necessarily to speak. And then, they're, both of, these entities are on our board. So, we just kind of in support of hoteliers against it, including Airbnbs are considered hoteliers. So, I don't know, is there something specific you wanted to touch on, Jason, or?
If so, Jason, come forward and introduce yourself and who you're affiliated with.
So Jason, the Candlewood Suites here in town, and then
What's your last name?
Keilman, Keilman.
Okay.
And I'm also on the advisory committee for the CBB.
He's chairman.
So I've got the transient guest tax listed for the state. There are suburbs of large towns, Kansas City, Wichita, and then larger cities, Hayes, but there are only, at least in my quick looking at it, Emporia, Abilene, Atchison, and Pratt, communities of equivalent size to us that are not suburbs that have a transient guest tax of 7% or higher.
Are they off the interstate?
So Emporia is maybe on interstate.
Oh, yeah.
I-35.
Yeah.
Abilene is on the interstate. Atchison may or may not be a suburb to
Close,
St.
yeah.
Joe, and then Pratt. Most of the other cities at 7% or higher are either Kansas City or Wichita suburbs, or Topeka, Hayes, Salina, Hutchinson, bigger communities that have a higher rate. So
How much would the 1% add to a hotel room of yours? How much would it cost?
$1.75. I mean, depending on, just $100.
Do you really think that somebody would stay in Manhattan for that? I mean, honestly, I'm not.
Well, I mean, if it's a leisure traveler between, and $1, no. But when we're submitting RFPs into companies, they do look at the tax rate. But then also, not only is it the rate, but how much more does Manhattan provide to a visitor? So I
But
mean,
if they're contractors, I mean, your argument could be they would have to drive a lot farther to get to work than they would if they stay here, and they're gonna be spending more money in their, I mean,
yeah, depending on where you're going up for riding.
Exactly,
Because there is
yeah.
the entrance, but,
Yeah.
and we have heard that, we have,
What are the rooms, the cost to stay in a room compared to those places? Manhattan's are more than.
yeah, Manhattan's a higher rate than us.
Exactly,
Yeah.
so that's why, and that's why I kept
Right.
the 7 instead of the 8. Because I think the EDC is the one who suggested maybe an 8% since Abilene was an 8% and they're smaller than us. So, I mean, I think 7 keeps you very still competitive, especially because I figured you guys were about the same. Because I mean, you are one of the nicer hotels in our town. And so I would have thought that you're closer to the pricing of Manhattan. So, I mean, I feel like, you know, $1 per room is not a lot, but it will add up for things that I'm wanting to do with the monies as far as, and I don't say I'm want to do, but suggesting to do with the monies in improving to maybe host more tournaments here. Because we all know that a huge sports complex is years and years away, whereas the things that I'm suggesting we can do faster.
Right. And so I guess my second point to that, or that I was gonna bring up, is that the suggestions you are making, I don't know if those would attract any tourism dollars to the area. So yes.
Have you ever had any kids in travel
Yes.
sports?
So they play volleyball, but I don't know if, will we host more tournaments?
Yes, the Y just replaced their floor, and they're gonna be able to host more tournaments. In fact, that would be some monies I would like to use to help them out to finish their, you know, where they could partner with the 12th Street Community Center and have tournaments. And then if we improve the softball fields, I think the girls sports in general here in Geary County have been very highly ignored. And so, you know, yes, that would be my intention of, you know, improving these smaller facilities to be able to host more tournaments.
Yeah, I don't know.
And it's not gonna be millions of dollars. Like I said, it's, you know, maybe 100,000 a year. But getting those, you know, at least improved where they can host tournaments, that's what I are suggesting for that.
And the individual clubs would set up the tournaments?
Yeah, they'd be the ones responsible for it, just like when you host them in a school or in other smaller communities.
Oh, I guess those were kind of my two main points, just the high, comparing us to other cities, similar, and then.
And Raquel, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but in your past life, you were a hotelier out at Acorns, and they actually had a 2% CID tax. Do you feel that did anybody ever complain about that?
So I never heard anybody complain about it. I was the salesperson there. No, to answer that just directly. But I also feel like as a hotelier, a salesperson for a hotel, both not just Acorns, but at what was the Marriott before now Sonesta, it would impact, because I would directly deal with RFPs, and as Jason mentioned, those are the people that I think would frown upon that, because again, I just went on a road trip. As the CBB director, I did not look at what the transient guest tax was. I know we needed a place to stay, and we stayed for the night. I do believe wholeheartedly that it would impact some of these RFPs that we're getting in. We're not getting as many RFPs accepted right now than just historically from the 6 years that I was a hotelier. So I think in that aspect, there's more to think about when it comes to that. And I'm trying to see things as the CBB director and not as a hotelier, which is hard to do because my whole time here, except for since March, has been as a hotelier. So I don't know.
So if you're already having problems getting RFPs, and we're at the lower rate, raising it, I don't know how that's gonna hurt you.
I don't think it'll help,
Yeah.
you know. Yeah, this is Megan.
We have we have a few Airbnbs in town, and one thing I will just say about.
Can you just introduce yourself for the minute?
I'm Megan Ruth, RUSCH.
Thank you.
And, we have a cabin south of town and it's not even, it's one unit. Acorns has tons of units, but I will say that people will not look at things like that as much if you're going to a destination versus like we have a building in town that has 2 apartments. And it's just totally different. Like people will go pay $200 a night to stay out there. They don't think about it. They don't care because they're gonna go be on this private, 4-acre pond, 400 acres. Like you don't think about it because it's a destination. Acorns is very similar. So I'm not sure what the rate was you guys were talking about, but 2%. People are gonna go out there. They love the lake, and Mike has tons of things to offer them out there. A restaurant, renting boats, and being at the beach. So I do feel like that is different in that sense. Just destinations are different. If you're going on a vacation, you're not gonna look at that because you're planning to just spend some money. Yeah.
Jason, how much of your business is contract RFP people?
75%.
75? But you would still be competitive against Manhattan. I mean, you said yourself that their higher rates and their taxes higher. Now their sales tax is just a little bit lower than ours. I mean, back in the day it was a lot lower, but now they're 935, I think, right? I don't know. I don't know. I think when I looked at it, it was 935 because when you balance it out, our sales tax plus the transient guest tax, we would be pretty much even. So it's not like, we're gonna be higher. So that's what I was looking at when I suggested the one, so.
And so just real quick, I have a hotelier that's watching, so he's texting me some points or a point that he wanted me to make was the fact about credit card fees, that goes against the owner as well. So that's something that he's saying that will impact. Now it's gonna be 1% higher on TGT, which is 99% of people use their credit cards to pay. So then that'll be a cost against the ownership too, on top of paying the transient guest
Well,
tax.
I don't know how often you use your credit card, but more and more places are making the person who's
Right.
using the credit card
Right,
eat that
it
3%.
just, but and I told him I would be here to represent,
Sure.
so, taking that into consideration.
Yeah.
That's something else that the average person doesn't think about,
No, I agree.
Yeah.
It's a good point to make.
May I ask, what is RFP and what is CID?
RFP is request for proposal.
Okay, and what is that? You said a 2% CID tax?
That was specifically at Acorn.
That was for a development agreement that we did with them where they added 2% onto all the sales tax, but they kept that 2%. So that's why I wanted to know if anybody complained about that.
It's a community improvement district. So, kind of like down here where Hibbett Sports is, that's another area that you pay more sales tax.
And Manhattan's have, a lot of places, Manhattan has it, a lot of places use that as development incentives for people so yeah, that's why I was asking if the 2% bothered anybody out there.
Anyway, it would be nice if the groups that can make something like this happen, like the county and the city and CVB and your group of people, to come together and talk about what plans and the pros and cons and, wrestle this out, because, everybody's got some ideas, but I think, like, once again, Geary County just needs to keep moving forward by working together with all the entities. And, I might not like it, Tricia might not like it, we might not be happy, but at the end of the day, we want to do the best for the community. And that to me would be, I wish we could come up with some ideas to even put things on the table. What are some ideas that we might have that we want to work towards that's going to benefit, the hotel people and get people in here. That was a neat one. We had the football teams coming in. That was nice revenue for the hotels and stuff. And
Yeah, and to kind of touch on that a little bit, at the end of our meeting last Tuesday, I don't know, it was probably the last 5 minutes. There were a whole bunch of ideas that came from what we can do in Geary County to bring tourism in. And it wasn't renovating the softball fields. It was, like putting some dollars into other things that are here that necessarily aren't the nicest looking facilities or whatnot. And I don't know, those are things that would be great to have a discussion and a brainstorming session or whatnot. And
but we should care about taking care of what we have. And
Right,
again,
right.
But the fields up at North Park are horrendous.
Right.
And
And there's, in my
to improve some of those things like that, to where we could get more teams
yeah,
and stuff. But when you get people coming from another town to play up there now, I hope that nobody hurt their car, because there was some serious good things up there that need to be worked on. So that too needs to be a priority for our county and city, is to improve what we have.
right.
And if that means monies from this.
Well, and that was just a suggestion when,
Right.
and I sent you my letter, and, it pretty much was like, that I definitely would like to go forward with it. And if people who are against it, they have an opportunity.
Are you guys, sorry not to interrupt, are you taking a vote tonight?
Yes, I'm
Is it
going
okay?
to ask for a vote tonight.
Is it okay if I read just my response to your Facebook post
Yes,
about it?
uh-huh.
Not to overshare or anything, I guess, but, I'm not in support of it. I think it sounds great in theory, but there are many things to consider. As an Airbnb, our market is very competitive. I feel like it is personally, and we are constantly trying to stay competitive. Our property in town here has 2 apartments in it. We purchased the building. It's in Granby Plaza, and we rented it completely. Half of the building is complete, and the remaining ground level to be remodeled. We will probably just leave it empty and gutted. And unfinished for the remainder of the time that we own it, however long that is. And we really don't have motivation to make improvements to it. There were some comments on Tricia's Facebook page that kind of criticized some of the hotels here in town, that they need to clean up their appearance and things like that. I think it's really easy to say that, and but a lot of individuals who make those comments, they don't have any idea how much it costs in labor and, permits, things like that. And then at the end of it, our property taxes are increased significantly because of it. And it kind of feels like a punishment after the fact. And our property taxes go up every single year without even doing anything more to our property. It's something that I fight constantly, just to stay ahead or feel like we are, because we are self-employed and we have overhead too. We buy consumables as an Airbnb. That is something that I feel like Airbnb guests are kind of their own little community. And, so we buy toothpaste, toothbrushes, cups, plates, we have all the dishes, but we have like paper and plasticware and things like that to use also. But we do that to stay competitive in our Airbnb market. and to make the guests feel welcome. We maintain the property, and then we have a ton of monthly bills that go, or just come with owning it. And everything in the last 5 years that we have owned and been doing this have increased just exponentially, across the board. And that's not to mention the time that it takes to do the laundry and just keep them immaculately clean, because you are reviewed. That's part of that community. They love to leave reviews. You want to maintain your guest experience and ratings. And it's easy to say, pass those costs along to the guests, that 1%, or pass our costs, our increase in costs to the guests, just like this tax. Unfortunately, that is easier said than done. We have hardly raised our prices since our properties have been open. And we have experienced even the $15 raise. If you try to edge it up, you will sit vacant. And I do look at other people's calendars that we are competing with here in town. And I feel like for a little while there was a girl and I that were constantly like edging each other down. I felt like it was ridiculous, but because we did all the work ourselves to our building, we were able to go a little bit lower, and we stayed busier than she did. Even with a 1% tax raise, all the guest sees is the bottom dollar amount. A lot of the time, I am one of those people. I am, so painfully cheap. I will, I look at the bottom dollar. It costs us around $75 a day to own our property, and that's just to break even. Our property has to be rented 18 nights a month to break even. I'm not complaining. I'm just trying to help everyone understand the perspective that there is so much work that goes into renting our place for 18 nights. And that's just to pay the bills and make zero profit, to not be paid for my time at all. And I know that that is on such a larger scale when it comes to a hotel and everything that they have to maintain. Just their costs are wild compared to ours. And I think if we're comparing apples to apples, do I have a time limit here? I'm not trying to just.
Well, I know, I read your response, so you're fine.
Okay. Manhattan has more amenities, museums, restaurants, activities to offer those that stay there, which in my opinion, it does warrant a higher TGT rate. Abilene's rate seems high without the amenities to offer, in my opinion. I would be reaching out to commissioners and voicing an opinion if I had an Airbnb there. Junction City is able to stay competitive with the current rate, even if it only amounts to a couple bucks a night for a transient guest to stay. We have a lot of contractors stay at our places, and they're working on various projects in the area. And we had talked at the last CDB meeting about geofencing. We have, I can't remember what that's called. Datify, and see how many contractors and military are coming to the area and things like that. What percentage of them pay the TGT with their bookings are contractors and military, sorry. This might help support or refute the discussion to raise the tax. And if the majority are contractors and military, I don't believe that it should be raised. Their companies paying for the bookings are looking at the bottom dollar. I don't think that they personally care what it has to offer besides a bed and the cheaper nightly rate than the next guy. And edging that price up can hurt potential for our hotels and B&Bs to get the bid for these stays. And, I think Kathy, you mentioned earlier that could hurt it as a whole. If we don't get it at all, then, that's going to hurt, sales tax and all kinds of other things. There's a saying, don't jump over dollars to pick up dimes. And I am afraid that that's what it would come to. As far as the funds, what the funds will be used for, the sports complex fund has over $800,000 in it since it was started, and there's lots of moving parts there as well. Sounds like a lot of money, and it is. However, in the grand scheme of things, the sport complex would probably cost $15 to $20 million to build, and there's so many questions like who pays for the rest of it. There have been conversations as to what the funds could be used for instead, improving what we already have to draw people to the area. It's a lot of money, and I don't have an answer as to what it would be best used for. I will say if the justification for raising the current TGT is to fix current fields that we have, $800,000 that we already have I believe would be a good start without raising the current tax rate. We are an advisory board as the CDB board. And, you know, it sounds like you guys have the ability to make a call on what those funds can be used for and change that, or amend it. Sorry. And the overall, as Jason said prior, I don't know that improving those ball fields in particular would bring a large.
That's just one suggestion.
I know it was. There was a point brought up during the last board meeting that TGT is for tourism and not to answer local concerns for there's nothing to do in Junction City. I do agree with this, but I do see how they go hand in hand also. It sounds great to the citizens of Junction City to raise the tax and they don't have to pay for all these improvements and amenities it can bring. I just really don't think it'll play out that way. It just kind of feels like a ready, fire, aim. I feel like, you know, like if there was a plan to it, if, you know, we've talked about pickleball courts at the CBB board meeting. You had mentioned that 55 plus and then younger kids, pickleball, everybody loves pickleball. It's such an important, I mean, I never would have thought Chicken and Pickle would be the company it is. Pickleball, but, so I just think that, I don't know, it always scares me when things start edging up because it starts at 1%, but you know, where does it end? And I just wish there was a plan for it, I guess, ahead of this, instead of adding more to a fund that is already huge, in my opinion, and could be dispersed among the community to improve a lot of what we already have. So I just hope that will be taken into consideration.
And with that being said, also, so this weekend, I too was at a lot of these events on Saturday. And I had lots of conversations about, you know, Tricia's letter to the editor or whatnot. And I also find that a lot of local people are not aware of exactly what transient guest tax is. We've talked about it. I do not like that it's called a transient guest tax because people automatically believe that it is a taxpayer tax. They don't understand that it's
And they didn't read my letter.
They don't understand that it's, you know, a tourist tax, a resort fee or whatever else it could be called. And so I did have one lady in particular say, I'd be fine if they added a 1% to my tax bill. That's not your tax bill, ma'am. You know, she was with her family, and so I wasn't gonna correct her, call her out or whatnot, like in this public space. But I do feel like a lot of Geary County residents don't understand that transient guest tax is not a county tax. So, and with that, since I'm talking on that real quick, I also feel like as a county entity, the CBB should have more say, if you will, on how that 1%, if it does get passed or whatnot, gets spent.
That's why I
Instead
said that you need to be involved in it too.
Right,
The players
right.
all need to be, they have some interest in it, needs to be at the
Right.
table to me.
Well, yeah, I would not be the one, I mean, I just made that as a suggestion of something. I didn't want to just say, I want to just raise this for no reason.
Right.
You know, I just felt like I had to put something that I felt like, okay, this is something that belongs to the county. This is something we can improve on. I totally, and first I want to thank, Jason and Megan for serving on our board. I mean, I appreciate the time and effort you guys have.
they're two of the ones that actually show up.
I know. I sat on the board for a little bit too, and I know you stuck through thick and thin, and, you know, I hope we're on a good track now, and, you know, I get where you're coming from as far as, okay, it's 1% this year, what's it gonna be? I truly feel like I don't want to be higher than Manhattan. I don't, because I want to be able to keep, you guys to be able to keep competitive. When we first did the transient guest tax, back, and they haven't, they didn't improve it because of the, we didn't have, but we have more restaurants here now than we've had in years. I think that our community is at a pivot point now where we are improving. The city and the county are much solid ground, financially than they have been in years. I think, Junction City is addressing their infrastructure, and they need to, because that is huge. That is huge. I don't care what anybody says. When you drive into this community off of Fort Riley and you see Grant Avenue, I wouldn't want to go anywhere else. Why would I want to come into the town? It looks horrible. But they are addressing that. And I think that is going to be a huge turning point to where we're going to see more people come to our community, because we do have a lot to offer. We do have a lot to offer. But I think that having that extra 1% is going to give us a little bit more to improve on the things that we have here that have been neglected for many, many years. So that is the reason why. And I have had some people, hoteliers, Airbnb, concerns to me, and I totally get that. I truly do. But I've also had a lot of people who live in the community that are very much for this and have asked over numerous times for us to bring it forward. And so that's what I feel like I'm doing today.
Do you think that those people are aware of the sports complex fund and how much is currently in there?
I know all the people on the EDC and the chamber do,
Who's the EDC?
the economic development.
Okay.
Which is a city.
Okay.
So can I add, I would assume that everyone in this county is for raising the transient guest tax, except for the individuals that collect it or the visitors that have to pay it.
Correct. I would say yes.
So I guess I'll just add to what everyone else said, that 2015 or 14, all the hotels were for raising the 1% for the sports complex, but nothing's occurred with that. So my fear is that this new 1% increase, we don't know precisely where the money would go or what it's for or when it would be used. So that would be my fear, that could happen again. And the transient guest tax is solely to attract visitors and tourism to our community, not improving infrastructure unless it will attract visitors.
Yes, that is correct. So if you wanted to use, say you guys wanted to improve a street, you guys could say, okay, we would recommend that you guys improve the street.
You can't.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. There's an AG opinion on it. Yes, you can. Betsy, do you remember reading that? They improved the lights in a parking lot.
We went down that road.
Yeah, for tourism. Yeah. Yes, you can.
So with
There's an
that,
AG opinion. I'm just saying that, yes.
But that is a slippery slope.
It is a slippery slope, and I'm not saying, I don't want you to give any of that money to a road.
So with that, I personally, and I don't know what you guys are gonna do up there, but I think that there should be more discussion before there's a motion.
I got a question. My name is Debbie Savage. I'm with Fresh Start Emergency Shelter. So, when this came up, I was thinking of all the people that actually live in motels, like Budget Motel on Washington, Homestead. That will affect them. Now, I know you said that there's like a 28 day, but how will you determine that Jim Smith is staying there month after month after month? How do you know that second month he's not?
So we don't know that.
Okay.
The hoteliers report that to the Department of Revenue.
Okay.
And that's, like, I don't even know how much every entity pays. I just know that.
Or who's paying.
Right. So, yeah, we don't.
Well, Jason,
The
you had
CDD
people
does.
stay more than 28 days. How do you handle that?
So our property management software allows it to, on their 28th night, all of the guest tax they have paid, we credit back to them and then stop charging it.
Okay.
And then when we do our reports to the state, we account for that and don't
So if they
So
they
next
leave
month.
then and then next week, then they
So
come
if
back.
you check out at one point,
Yeah, then
anytime.
I was gonna say, then if they go home for the weekend and come
So
back, then the 28 days
The
starts
28
over.
days starts over.
Yeah, so I could tell you like,
Check out the.
Continuous.
right, from being at the Marriott, when we had Wildcat Construction Stay, they, were here working from February through November, but they check in on Monday and then they check out on Friday. And then they go home for the weekend and they come back on Monday, check in again. So all of Wildcat Construction stays are transient guests taxable.
And there are 20 consecutive days.
It's
Has to be
consecutive days,
consecutive.
so if there's a 1 day break, then it resets it.
So, oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry,
No, you're
my
fine.
name's Ed Savage, live here in the county. So I have a couple of questions. The first question, I think deals with the entire situation, and it's something I was not aware of. And I'm glad, thank you, by the way, for having these meetings at night, because I have not been able to come to any meetings because I work. Anyway, but that $800,000 that we have in that account, and I don't care what you call it, sports complex, improve your roads, doesn't matter to me. We need to do something with that, correct?
Well, it can only be, when the charter ordinance or resolution was written,
Yes.
it can only be used for a sports complex.
Okay, so we have to redo that.
Yeah.
Okay, obviously, because we don't have $20 million in that account, we need to redo that. I agree with you, Trish, that we need to improve what we have. It seems like we all agree that we need to improve what we have. So how do we move forward with that? What's next? Because the charter being redone is good. I think that's good. Transient guest tax, obviously, we're concerned with because we care about the people that we serve. And if they do not stay more than 28 consecutive days, then that's a tax they end up paying that they can't afford to pay anyway. However, I don't disagree with the 1% because the 1%, if it were to go into an account that could be used, would be amazing. And that, I guess, was my point is, if we don't have a plan to move forward, if we don't have a plan for the 800,000 that we already have, to add $100,000 to it a year, I don't think I would be in support of. However, if we had that plan, I'd be 100% in support of it.
Well, and basically what I was gonna address, because I wanted to do the 1% first. So I would have, if we did move forward with the 1%, to put that into the sports complex, because we're gonna have to change the charter ordinance anyway if we do raise the transient guest tax one, we have to do a charter ordinance, so we can do this all together. Putting that 1% into the sports complex and putting a lid on how much we can actually use every year, because it's gonna take us a whole year to even get the 100,000 to even do anything. But if we do that to where we can actually use that pot of money, some of that pot of money that's already in there, we could get something done. We could put something on the table and say, here, listen, let's see what we can do with this money this year to you guys, to suggest to us. That's one of the things I would like to do. So it's kind of two different things, because we're kind of like, because then if we don't use that money every year, it's still helping build that if we do ever do a sports complex.
Are we getting interest off that money?
Off the sales tax? No. I mean, it's into the general fund, but it's not being allocated out to that fund, no. There's no statute that would require it, so you guys would have to do something in order to pass vote to have that allocated, if that's what you chose to do.
But we could be getting interest.
I mean, we are getting interest.
We're getting interest, but it's in the general fund, but if we want it to
Yeah,
go
it's
towards
in-
the sports
yeah,
complex,
that's
then
what
You would have to vote on it to
we would have to
allocate it.
change that.
The ones that we are doing it in are ones that statutes say you shall or may do it. And
All right, so where we we doing?
Well, so I can have more of a plan, I would like to put this on the agenda for next week, and I will have something written up on what exactly I'm looking at and have it in the packet so people can see it.
Well, I wish there was more, ideas from other people. I wish that we could have a work session with the city, the school district, the EDC, the CBB, and the chamber, and come together with this group to
Okay,
find
so
out.
why is the EDC in the chamber?
Well, they wrote the letter, so
I
you
know
hate to
why.
leave them out.
There were people on there that were like, why are we not capitalizing on more money to be able to help with tourism and things to bring more people into our community? And so,
See, I
that's
thought
their job.
ideally that you then were involved in part of any of that conversation.
No.
this was before, they first sent the letter before she even
Yeah.
got here.
And just on the
This
defense
is a
of
discussion that's been going on for a while.
Yeah,
Well,
so
I saw a letter
again,
we
it'd be
just got,
great
but I
for
didn't know there
the
was another
director
letter.
of the CBB to have some insight on that. I know about certain things because I sat on the board, for the CBB board for a while. But, so I understand that, I know that, the chamber and EDC sent in their letter of support, and hoteliers also, I have letters of support from them as well. And just to kind of touch on your idea, Kathy, of you wish there was more ideas, like I said, in our,
I'm sorry, letters not in support.
yes, it's letters of not,
We know what
to
you
support, no, yes, sorry, retraction. But thanks. So just real quick, and literally the last 5 minutes, like I said, of our last meeting, we talked about the skating rink, we talked about a drive-in movie theater, we talked about pickleball again, we talked about, I think there were 4 or 5 things that, we could utilize. The whole pickleball idea was spearheaded by Rick, and, he had this grandiose thing that, on Grant Street, where to tap into that whole revitalization thing, that the Grant Street thing, so that when you drive out, you're not dodging, stuff also, and, damaging your vehicle like at North Park or whatnot. So yeah, I think that it would be a good idea to have something to bounce ideas off. I don't know if a week is enough time, to be honest, but
I mean,
yeah.
are we looking at this?
There are so many things that can be done. I mean,
Right.
I feel that if we do this and, that we task our CBB board to come up with something, they will come up with it.
Right. And
So, I mean,
also
there's so
maybe-
many, there could probably be 10 dozen things to be done.
And maybe not necessarily pass the 1% increase, but maybe start with the funds that are already there, and then when the ball's rolling, see about replenishing whatever's used with an increase, that the tourism dollars will then reflect, hey, you know what, we did this, it worked, so let's go with idea number 2 or idea number 3 and do it that way. So instead of adding more to the kitty, if you will, that's already there, using what we have, and then replacing it when we see, true outcome.
I just think it's a win-win to do it at 7%. We're leaving money, I feel, on the table doing it, so when I present, I'm gonna present with the increase as well as the other stuff, so. I was asked to do that.
Right.
The reason why they just sent it, Kathy, is because when I was at the EDC meeting, I said it was on the agenda, and they said, well, Kathy didn't get it, so they said they were gonna send it again.
Well, but I think they redid the numbers, because I think the last letter that they sent.
Did they say 8 on
was
there?
8.
Yeah, I
So they
told them I
re-
was only gonna do 7
they-
because
Yeah,
I
so it
wanted,
is a new letter.
okay, I
Yeah,
didn't even read
it
it,
is,
because
yeah.
they just said they were sending
Because
it
it
out.
was last year's.
They did a new, motion, and I told them I did not wanna go to 8.
Right, and I think
So-
last year's letter was 8, and
Yeah,
so this
you're
year's
right,
letter
I didn't
is
even
7.
read it, because I knew what it said, but.
Well, sounds to me, again, I guess my point would be that you've got different entities going different directions, and I think we need to go this way instead of out. And so if you might come up with yours, but then what do you want to do? And what, and are we doing it as just a Geary County function or a standalone type thing like they proposed years ago with Adam Wilkie, the city and county not having anything to do as far as running it. So that's where I'm confused with all of it is what do we want to do with the money? And I don't think it should just be up to me or you or us necessarily to make that decision. I think there needs to be other players at the table, and if we have to argue about it, we argue about it, but we should argue until, we can't leave until we make a decision.
And I think this is
And I
a
agree
great
with you
come
on the
together
decision
moment,
on what we're gonna do with the money, for sure. We need to have everybody at the table, but
Like
we
the
are the
school-
only ones that
Sure, I
that
understand
make
that.
that go forward with
We're
it.
in control of
And
it.
I
then,
understand that.
well, yeah, but I mean, even with the 1% increase, and there is a way to stop it if if we pass it, there is a way to do a petition against it. So I
Just like with the school district, maybe if we could come up with some glorious idea that, and the school district could buy into it, where that could be help from the school district to help fund, some of those activities. The kids can use it at some point. And I mean, it just seems like you get more people involved with ideas. And again, it might not be it can be a good discussion, but I just think it needs to be a discussion and a discussion we need to have. Even we have to have a work session before we come back to meet, just us or whoever, and we come up with ideas, and maybe everybody should be tasked with some ideas to come up what we want the money used for, because I'm not in a position to say yes on a motion. I would motion to table it for another day, because like I said, I'm not totally against it, because we need quality of life and to do something to draw people in this community for everyone. And we need to make that decision as to what we want to do.
Yeah, I said I wasn't making a motion tonight.
Okay.
But I'm putting it on the agenda for next week, so come prepared.
Well, if we have the ideas and once again, that these players are involved in the conversation, I would.
Yeah, I'd like to hear what you guys talked about last week.
Sure.
On your thing.
Are we going to invite a member of the, CVB, but the school district to be involved in it?
Well, I think,
Well, I think if the chamber and the EDC, I mean, there's other entities already involving themselves in it, so.
Okay. But I
we
think
can invite whoever you want on
Yeah,
it.
yeah. I just think in my mind, some schools, we went to a dance, and it was the neatest thing. We went to Liberty, Missouri, which isn't that huge. And I went by this place several times because I was looking for the Liberty Performing Arts. Went back and forth, it's like it says it's right here. And then so I pulled in the driveway. Well, lo and behold, it was a middle school, but it was also a recreational facility for families. They had like 3 or 4 different entities. They had seniors in there swimming. They had seniors doing this. They had an auditorium for the dance stuff. There were people all over this place. They had 2 parking lots that were full. We had to park alongside the street in Liberty, Missouri. But it was a multiplex unit that had all these entities, and they had 2 swimming pools. They had kids playing basketball that you could sit up on top and watch. That was just neat. Something like that to accommodate all this stuff. Why can't, if we threw everything in one bucket, it would seem like it would cost everybody less.
Yep. No, I totally agree with you on that.
Maybe
That was
we need
neat.
to get a pickleball.
The chicken and pickle?
Yeah.
Chicken and pickle?
No, we need to come up with our own.
But who would think to put it in a middle, it was a middle school. It was a school, but it.
All right, well.
Is next, what day is that?
There's two votes for Bucky.
Okay, let's plan on June 30th, because the 23rd is our staff meeting, and that usually lasts a long time. So let's plan on, and that'll give us.
I'm gonna be gone the 23rd, so.
Okay, well then, all right, well then let's put it on the agenda for the 30th. And then
How much time do you want?
See you in the meantime.
Well, at least a half
No,
an
I'm just kidding.
hour at the end of the day.
30 minutes,
That'll be a morning.
30 minutes.
Probably,
morning.
Probably about 11:30.
About 11:30.
Sounds good to me. All right. Well, I'm done talking.
Thank you.
Thank you all for your input. I was hoping
Yeah.
there'd be more people because you catch, like you said, not a lot of people know what transient guest tax is. I was at one of our meetings and I tried to get the ladies, what'd you think about this? Nobody knew I was talking about, so
Yeah.
just
Well,
forget it.
we did make a Facebook post about transient guest tax.
Yeah, I saw it today.
So,
It was very long.
yeah.
No,
There's a lot to explain. It's a lot to
It
break
does
down,
take a lot to
so.
explain what you can use it for, like, some people were
Right.
like, and Megan, I do want you, anybody that was talking about how people need to clean up their stuff was not talking about yours or Jason's
Oh, I know
property.
that, I know that.
There was, that you aren't even close to who they were talking about. So, well, I appreciate everybody coming out. I'm excited that people are here. Dewey,
Yeah.
I'm so glad you graced us with your presence today.
Yes.
Are you still awake?
Not really.
Thank you. Thank you guys for coming.
You probably missed out on the evening meal up there.
It'll get away.
Yeah, we're adjourned.
I would love to learn